Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishmi, Eliyahu Hatishmi, Eliyahu Hatishmi, Eliyahu Hagilodi, Eliyahu Hagilodi, Eliyahu Hagilodi, Eliyahu Hagilodi, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu Hagilodi, Eliyahu Hanavi, Mashiach ben David, Imenu Yavayadeinu, Mashiach ben David, Hamavil ben Kodesh lecho ilchato yiseinu, Uvim lechol dareinu v'chasdeinu. Hayim becho Hashem chavasis al libo v'shodi oilom becho Hashem chavasis al libo v'shodi oilom Hayim becho Hashem chavasis al libo v'shodi oilom becho Hashem chavasis al libo v'shodi oilom becho Hashem
Shavua Tov. Oh yeah, you have to get that in. How is it working till now? How was it working? Yeah. Automatic. Yeah, it's not on Wi-Fi anymore. Okay. L'chaim. L'chaim l'brach, everyone. Agut tavach. Shavua Tov. Shavua Tov and Agut tavach, everyone. Everyone should be blessed with big, big blessings and big, big light. Tonight is a very holy night. We connect to the great. We're connecting the first this year, 5786, and we are connecting to the Kohen HaGadol, the great Kohen, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pulna, known for his great work called Toldos Yaakov Yosef. Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pulna was the chief disciple of the holy Baal Shem Tov, the great scribe of the holy Baal Shem Tov. Scribe not in the sense that he wrote Torahs, but the scribe is that if not for Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pulna, we wouldn't have the Baal Shem Tov's teachings. Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pulna was the one who recorded in his books all the Torah, all the great Torah from the holy Baal Shem Tov was recorded and put into and left for us, because the Baal Shem Tov didn't write any books. And his holy student, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pulna, was the one who took the Baal Shem Tov's teachings and put them into the Sefer, the holy book of the Toldos. So his yard site is actually Chav Dalet Tishrei, Matzai Simchas Torah, Isru Chag, the day after Simchas Torah, he passed away, in Tov Kuf Mem Dalet, which is 1784. He passed away 24 years after the holy Baal Shem Tov. But it's very interesting because according to, we don't really have his birthday clear, when the great Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pulna was born, but it seems like he was older than the Baal Shem Tov. And some even place him that he was born in the year Taf Lamed, which would make him 28 years older than the Baal Shem Tov. He was a very, very, very great rabbi and a great tzaddik and a great Kabbalist before he met the Baal Shem Tov, similar to the Maggid of Mezrich. And what is so phenomenal about him is, if that's true that he was 28 years even the senior of the Baal Shem Tov, he also came from a very, very, very high-level rabbinic family. He was a direct descendant from great rabbis and great Kabbalists. So for him to completely, at a ripe old age, he must have been already in the 70s by the time that he met the Baal Shem Tov. Yes, He was around 110 years old when he passed away. He lived very, very long life. If we would say that this was his birthday, similar to Yosef Tzaddik, who lived to 110. So it's a very, very, very amazing thing about him that he was able to radically transform his entire life and start all over again as if he didn't know anything until when he met the Baal Shem Tov. So it's very hard for people. It was like really a lech lecha me'artzecha. He needed to fulfill the same thing like Avram Avinu, to completely drop his past and to start completely new. And he so radically changed that he felt that whatever he did before he met the Baal Shem Tov, it was very, 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 very insignificant. When he wrote his books, he didn't write any chidushim that he wrote, even though he was a genius in Torah. He didn't put anything in. He canceled everything that he knew from before the Baal Shem Tov because he felt that Torah that he learned was not Torah Lishma. For a person to decide that when he was at the age of 70, 75, is a hafla of a fella. It's an absolute wonder to find someone like this. And he was one of those who really, really, really was an anti-Baal Shem Tov. He fought the Baal Shem Tov. And to make this complete conversion, and then to become the chief disciple of the Holy Baal Shem Tov, so he becomes one of the most important figures in the history of Chassidus, the great Tzaddik, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pulna. So we are here inviting his holy soul to be with us tonight and to bless us as a Kohen. He's the great Kohen. The Baal Shem Tov said that if Mashiach would arrive in the Baal Shem Tov's lifetime, then Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pulna would be the Kohen Gadol. So for sure, with that power, he has the powers of blessing, and he blesses us all with all of his great, 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 great blessings. So l'chaim u'lebracha. We want to thank the Tzikman family for their sponsor of tonight's event, and Hashem should bless them with all the brachas. And a happy birthday to David Tzikman upon his 30th birthday. There should be a shnas bracha and atzlacha to him, and only mazel and bracha and light and happiness and joy to him, and to the rest of, and all the blessings to the rest of the Tzikman family, and only blessings to them and to all of us. Achayim u'lebracha. What? Oh, and it's your grandmother's yard site. What's her name? Chana Bas David Akaya, may this be for his chus, aliyas neshama. L'chaim u'lebracha.
See lachem bracha, and b'dai, and b'dai, and b'dai, and sheir lusiv seisechem, Eloi merdai, and sheir lusiv seisechem, Eloi merdai. Barikisi lachem bracha and b'dai, and b'dai, and b'dai, and b'dai, barikisi lachem bracha and b'dai, and b'dai, and b'dai, and b'dai. Nachashim tzif seizechem Eloi merdai, Nachashim tzif seizechem Eloi merdai, Barikisi lachem bracha and b'dai, and b'dai, and b'dai, Barikisi lachem bracha and b'dai, and b'dai, and sheir lusiv seisechem, Eloi merdai, barikisi lachem bracha and b'dai, and b'dai, and b'dai, barikisi lachem bracha and b'dai, and b'dai, and b'dai, עד שיבלו ספסייכם ואלוהי מר די 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 עד שיבלו ספסייכם ואלוהי מר די
die, l'chaim l'bracha. So in the city, in a small little shtetl not far from Vilna, there was a young couple that had just gotten married, and this girl was a coming from a very nice family. She married this young man who was supposed to be a very big Talmud Chacham, and he was a great scholar. And one time, the daughter noticed, the girl noticed, the wife noticed that the husband is reads a book always, and he always seems to be hiding the sefer. He always seems to be hiding the book. In other words, she noticed that her husband is reading something that he doesn't want anybody to see. So somehow in her conversation, she told her father about it. Her father got very curious, and he snuck his way into the house, asked his daughter where her husband keeps the book, and he found the book, none other to be the book of Toldos Yaakov Yosef. And this book was hiding under his pillow. So now the father discovered this to his great horror, because this was the first Hasidic sefer, and everybody knew that the Hasidim, and that means that his son-in-law is in other words, imagine that is part of the cult. That's how it was seen. It was seen as a cult. Hasidism was accused as this new cult that was like a derailing of Judaism. So the father went berserk. The father-in-law, that his son-in-law, who he's supporting, and he had such a special daughter, he got this son-in-law supposed to be this great scholar, and now he's part of this Hasidic group. He ran in a rage, and he went to speak to his friends, and he told his friends that he found, Rahman al-Atzlan, what happened, God forbid, that his son-in-law was caught to be part of the Hasidic, has joined the Hasidic movement, is in the cult. So all the friends started telling him, you got to warn him. You got to tell him right now that what? No, this is after the Baal Shem Tov. Where? When? Who? The book was printed. No, this is not the Toldos. No, they found him reading the book of the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, which is the first Hasidic book to be printed. By the way, this book was banned. Not only was it banned, it was even public burnings, in which they burnt the book of the Toldos. In a few towns, they made a public burning similar to that the Christians burnt the Talmud. So there were burnings when they burnt. I never heard that they did that to the Alter Rebbe, to the Tanya. But the Toldos, his book was printed like 20 years before the Tanya, and they in Tav Kuf Mem, and they were burning. There were public burnings of the book of the Toldos. So now they caught this. The family caught this boy reading this young man reading the book. So right away, of course, the father-in-law calls the son-in-law and tells him that he demands of him to disassociate himself from the entire Hasidic movement, and that if he doesn't do that immediately, he's going to be in big trouble. And the young man said, listen, I'm living my life. I'm not bothering anybody. I'm doing my thing. I understand that maybe you don't like it. Fine, it's your problem. But this is my personal connection to Hashem and my service of God, and I'm not going to alter my life just because of what you're telling me. So they got really angry, and he got together with his friends again, and they said, what are they going to do? And some people were saying, they're suggesting that maybe they were so enraged. Some people felt that this boy needs to be put in this place. They should really beat him up. But then they got scared. They said that if that's going to happen, it's probably going to end up backfiring. They said that's not the Eitzah. Other people suggested, so you got to, listen, you can't keep a son-in-law who's in the cult. It's good, Baruch Hashem, you caught it before they had a child. Before they had children, before the girl is... so let's immediately demand the divorce. You should demand the divorce, that the man should divorce his wife. So this young man refused to. He said he doesn't want to do that. He's happy with his wife, and he feels no need that he has to divorce his wife. So suddenly this became the main story in the Jewish town, the huge fight. Some people came in his defense. Not that they were Hasidim, but they felt that, you know what, leave him alone. It's his business. He's living his life. He's not doing any... He's not a Machal Shabbos or not doing other things that are, desecrating or whatever. Leave him alone. Others were crying, no, this is a God forbid. This is like a growth, a dangerous growth growing in the Jewish communities. We can't leave this, chas v'shalom. We have to uproot this. So this became the great commotion in town. There was a old Paritz who lived in the outskirts of the town. And he heard that there's a big tumult happening in the town. Some were saying like this, and some were saying like that, and there was a commotion. So he asked his people to find out what's happening in the Jewish people, why is the fight going on? And they told him it's a fight about a book, about a family, about a couple. They're demanding there should be a divorce. This guy is reading books of heresy. That was the fight. He's reading books of heresy, so therefore, the Paritz, the squire, he was the wealthy guy, he sends, and he says, please, he says, Chaver, please, he says, please find out what's the name of this book that they're fighting about. So he said the name of the book is the Toldos, and it's written by a man, Toldos Yaakov Yosef. So the squire goes ahead and he sends and he asks immediately. He sends and he asks immediately that he wants to see this book. He wants to see the book. So they bring him the book and he looks in the front page, and in the book it was written in the front page, it had a stamp in Russian or in whatever, in Polish. And he was able to read it. And it said the name of Yaakov Yosef of Pulno. So this Parit says, I want that those people that are engaged, the family of this young man, and all of these that are making this big commotion, all the main people that are engaged in this fight, I want them all to come. I want them all to come to see me. Okay? Now the people got a little nervous. Now the Paritz is getting involved. It's not his business. But okay. They come to the Paritz's place, his mansion. And he says to these people, he says to them as follows. I want to tell you a story. Man, when I was a young man, this Paritz is a very old man. He says, when I was a young man, I was a military man. And I was a high official in the army, a very, very high official in the army. And I had many soldiers or whatever he was. He was a, a sergeant, or he was a head of a battalion. And all the people that were, my men, we would go from place to places. And we were stationed at that time outside the town of Pulnoy, which is this town. And one morning, we got notice from my higher ups that we need to move our position, and that all the guys which were over here, we're moving to a different place. We're marching on to a different area. So in order, the way it would work is, before we would leave, we would have to do a roll call. We have to make sure that all the soldiers are there and ready to move. So it was early morning, maybe like 5 a.m. We called the roll call, and we did a count from all the soldiers, and we found that 3 guys were missing. 3 soldiers were missing. Because the 3 soldiers were missing, we couldn't leave. So we immediately sent people to search for them. And we figured, where are these guys hanging out? They're hanging out probably in the tavern. Maybe they got drunk. They went into town. It was Saturday night. They had a night off. They went into town. They're probably drunk somewhere in a tavern. We'll go get them. So they went into the town, Pulnoy, and they went to every bar. And they're looking and they're looking and they're searching. It's early in the morning. The bars are closed. No one is really there. They can't find them. Finally, they come back to the squire and they say, they come back after a long search and they say, we found them, but you're not going to believe it. You're not going to believe it. He says, what's going on? He says, they're standing frozen in a house. And they're standing, and there's a very, very distinguished looking man, a rabbi or something. He has a very, 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 very distinguished looking face and appearance. And these guys are literally standing in the room as if they're nailed to the ground. And we asked them to come, but they're not budging. So he says, what are you, crazy? He thinks these guys had a little bit of a drink as well. So he went and he goes and he sends another group to search. Second group comes back and they say the same story. So now this guy says, I was already very intrigued. I have to see this. So I myself left and I came to that house, and lo and behold, my 3 soldiers are standing frozen like this. One is like this, the other is like that. They're standing like this. They can't budge. And in the middle of the room, there's a table, and there seems to be some leftover food. And there is a rabbi there who is very, very lost in thought. So I was a little nervous, but I had to get my soldiers. So I catch the rabbi's attention. I made some sounds, and I kind of woke up he's waking up from a trance. And I said to him, you look like a godly man. You look like a holy man, but these are my guys. And they seem that not really okay. Can you help them out? So he said, he looks and he's waking up from somewhere and he says, it's because they've taken things that are not theirs. They have stolen goods. If you'll get their stolen, whatever they've taken out of their pockets, then they'll be released. So they right away go out and they start searching in their pockets. And they start pulling out some silverware. That's some silver spoons, knives, some little becher, or this or that, a cup. They start pulling it out. As soon as they pull out everything from their pockets, these guys suddenly they can move and they can leave. But one guy remained stuck. So they're searching and they said, maybe he stuck something in his boot. So they go in and he finds and he pulls out, this guy had put something in his boot. So they pull it out from the boot, and suddenly the guy can move. And these guys, and the guy yells at them and he says, get out of here. They go back to the camp. He says, I was so moved about what was going on over here. I said, Holy Rabbi, I said, what was the story? Story is, it was Pesach by night, and this was at the end of the Seder. Rabbi Yaakov Yosef Pulnoi had ended his Seder already. Everybody, members in the house, went to sleep, and he had gotten into a very, 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 very deep dveikus. And his mind was swimming in the higher realms. He was in a deep state. He was saying Shir Hashirim or whatever it was. And like Rabbi Akiva, when they came, the students, they said, Igiyaz man tefillah shel shachris. Instead of the students coming, these 3 thugs walked in. They're soldiers. What happened was, they're going through town. The bars were closed or whatever. They see a house with the door open because it was Pesach by night. And then you don't close the door. So the door was open. They helped themselves. And they see this rabbi sitting there, but he doesn't even look what's going on. So they see some silverware laying on the table. So they helped themselves. And they took whatever they could take. And what happened to them was they froze. So he says I said to the rabbi, I said, you're such a holy man. He says, please give me a blessing. He says, what do you want? He says, I don't have any children. Can you bless me with children? And he gave me a blessing. And then I said to him, I also want to live a long life. He blessed me with a long life. And then I asked him, I said, I want to know when my end will come. How long, what's my destiny? Smart man. He sees he's by a holy man. He says, tell me, when am I meant to die? So the holy Rabbi Yaakov Yosef says to him, that I can't reveal. That's not something that anybody's allowed to know. He says, but the one thing I can tell you is that before you pass away at the end of your life, you are going to make my name known to people who don't know who I am. And that's what the saintly rabbi said to me way back then. Lo and behold, we merited to have children, my wife and I, after this blessing. And as you can see, thank God I've lived to a ripe old age. Now I hear in town that there's a whole fight going on about a young man who's been reading the book of this holy rabbi. And you're going to tell me that this holy rabbi that I met with my own, and I saw his holiness, and you're going to tell me that this book is a book of heresy. He says, I'm telling you right now, you better all ask forgiveness right now from the holy rabbi. And all of you go home and live happily ever after. And that's what they did, of course. They asked for forgiveness. And he said, you better let this young man read that book. And he doesn't have to read it anymore under his pillow. And so it was. And the matter was put to rest. And the Paritz passed away just a little while later. A few months later, the Paritz had passed away. As Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pulnoi had told him that before he passes away, he will make known the greatness of the great holy tzaddik. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'brachim. Yes. Okay, I'm moving this anyway. What do you need from that? Oh, you want me to move it over there? Okay. L'chaim. Everyone, please, whoever wants to say l'chaim, please come up over here. I can't run around with the bottle. I'm stuck behind over here. L'chaim. L'chaim Alebracha. Regarding how Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pulna, how the Toldos, just an announcement that we're going to be having some more pizza coming soon. Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pulna came close to the Baal Shem Tov. There are versions to the story, or rather complete different stories. And it seems like there were a few such events. There were a few events who connected this great tzaddik to the Baal Shem Tov, that opened up his eyes to be able to see this new light, the light that so many in his generation didn't merit to see, but it captured him. And once he was swept into this deeper light of Yiddishkeit, this higher understanding and this tremendous godly light that was shining from the Baal Shem Tov, how did it happen? What was that connection? So in Shifchei Baal Shem Tov, which is a very a sefer written by the early ones about the praises of the Baal Shem Tov, there's a couple of pieces over there, a couple of descriptions regarding Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pulna coming to the Baal Shem Tov. So over there it relates it very simply. But again, as I'm going to mention soon, it seems like there were a few things that inspired him to come to the Baal Shem Tov. But it does say there that when the first time he came, It was on an Erev Shabbos. It was on a Friday, and he saw the Baal Shem Tov before davening smoking a pipe. The holy Baal Shem Tov was sitting before davening, and he was smoking a lilka. A lilka is a pipe. And it bothered him because what he would do before davening is he would sit for hours and he would learn. Actually, there was never a day that he didn't wake up at midnight and stay up for hours and hours learning from Chatzos. One of the things he actually would do, this big tzaddik, was he would go to the mikveh. Even when he was 70 years old, he would go to a freezing river. He would crack open the ice, and he would go into the water. And completely miraculous, because a person can't survive this. He would come there and he would learn the entire Masechtas Mikvahis by the mikveh or partially in the mikveh. Then he would learn the Kavanas Arizal, according to what it says in one sefer, is that he would put the Arizal sefer on the ice floating, and he would be looking at the Arizal's Kavanas, and he would toivel in the mikveh with these Kavanas. And then this was already after his escarvus to the Baal Shem Tov, and then he would say, I, Pneus. Pneus means ulterior motives. And this tzaddik was fighting with himself that his Yiddishkeit and his mitzvahs and his connection to the Eibishter wasn't pure enough. So he would say, Pneus. And one of the great tzaddikim said, Alavayaf insgezukt, his Pneus that he had. For us, this should be our lishma, what he was struggling with. That was like a daka shebedak. But anyways, he sees the Baal Shem Tov smoking a pipe, and it bothered him. Like, this is what you do before davening. But then Rabbi Yaakov Yosef was davening, and in the midst of his davening, his heart opened up like he never ever felt in his life, and he cried with such intensity. And he realized that this bechias that he's crying right now is not coming from him. And he had the wisdom to understand that the Baal Shem Tov smoking the pipe was what delivered such godliness and such a powerful infusion of Hashem's presence into his heart that it melted his heart from a way that he's never experienced. And that was his escarvus to the Baal Shem Tov. Notice he came close to the Baal Shem Tov not because of miracles, not because of the Gavaldi things that he saw, but when he realized that the Baal Shem Tov was able to open his neshama in a manner, like it says, b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafsha, b'chol me'odecha, with all your might, on such a deep level, that he never ever, and he realized that the Baal Shem Tov was doing yichudim. When the Baal Shem Tov was smoking his pipe, the Baal Shem Tov was causing supernal unifications, which means causing tremendous downloads of infinite light into the world, and this was affecting his neshama, this increased sensitivity and this increased consciousness of God. He felt it as a direct derivative of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Ketores, mamish the avod of Ketores, like when the Kohen Gadol did Ketores. The Baal Shem Tov once showed one of his students, Reb David of the city of Ostra. The Baal Shem Tov said, let me show you the new heavens I created. The Shema. It says when the days of Mashiach, it says, there's going to be a Shemayim HaChadasha v'Aretz HaChadasha. There's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. The Baal Shem Tov once said to a student, let me show you the new heaven and the new earth I created from the smoking of my pipe. And when Reb David of Ostra, when the Baal Shem Tov opened up his eyes to see that new heavens, he almost fainted. He couldn't handle the revelation of what he saw. So the Rabbi Yaakov Yosef experienced davening like he never experienced before through the Baal Shem Tov. But there's other stories that are told which kind of warmed him up before that and kind of inspired him to make his move to come in the first place. The first one who reached out to him and tried to kind of wheel him in and hook him on to Chasidus was Reb Leib Moichiach. There was a great tzaddik who lived in the city. Now this, in the end of his life, he only moved to the city of the town called Pulna in the end of his life. Earlier at the time when he came close to the Baal Shem Tov, he was in a place called Shadi. It's like, it has like a little bit of a Romanian name. Shadigrad. That was the name of the town where he was the rabbi. And he was banned from that town, as we're going to see. They ran him out of town after he became a chassid. But he was in this city, and there was another a student of the Baal Shem Tov named Reb Leib. We spoke about him last year a little bit. Reb Leib Moichiach. He was called Reb Leib the Rebuker. And he was from the city of Polna. And he was one of the big students of the Baal Shem Tov. He traveled to Sharigrad to Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polna with the intention of pulling him close. Maybe the Baal Shem Tov told him that he's destined to be his chassid and to maybe be his scribe. I'm not sure if it was under the instructions of the Baal Shem Tov or he did it on his own. He was a great man. He came to the rabbi, to Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, and he said, "Can I be by you for Shabbos?" The rabbi said, "Yeah, you can be by me for Shabbos." He invited him, let him be. He saw that he was a special. Maybe he knew him from before. I'm not sure, but he allowed him to be a Shabbos guest. And this Reb Leib Moichiach had already. He didn't daven in the regular minyan because the regular minyanim, the davening was pretty cold and fast and like this. And he had his own minyan that he would daven. They took their time and they davened with fire and they davened with the Slavos. So he tells Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polna, "I need a daven in your house. I can stay. I want to daven in your house with my own minyan." So Rabbi Yaakov Yosef said, "Gesundheit, but I'm not davening with you. I'm going to shul." So he went to shul and he comes back, and then Rabbi Leib Moichiach says to him, "I am going to give a drasha today. If the rabbi can honor me, if the rabbi in the town, if you can honor me and come to my drasha." They used to have these magidim. They would go around town. Magid means a speaker who would inspire people. So if you can come to my speech, it would mean a lot to me. So Rabbi Yaakov Yosef came to his speech. When he gave his drasha, this Yid, this Reb Leib Moichiach, he spoke in a way that he basically addressed every element of Rabbi Yaakov Yosef's life. He Baruch HaKodesh, he knew what he's struggling with, what his issues are, what his life is, what his thing is. And he literally he was reading, he was giving him, and he felt that how in the world does he know everything about me? He was blown away, and he realized this is a holy man who's giving him a complete inspection, an internal inspection, and reading him. So Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polna told the people in Sharigrad, "Come for Shalashudis," which the Hasidim were the ones who did the Shalashudis, the public Shalashudis. Everybody else would go home to their wives and eat their own Shalashudis, but the Hasidim would eat together, Shalashudis and Shul. But now, because he was so inspired by him, he stayed there and he came for the Shalashudis. And that was his first intro to Hasidim, to the Baal Shem Tov, to so on and so forth. But there is a story told, very interesting, that relates another aspect, which is really, really cool, about how he came. One of his, because maybe he was inspired by one of the Baal Shem Tov students, and this was a little bit of a warm-up. This that kind of opened up his heart that he shouldn't be such a misnagid. He shouldn't be such an anti. But maybe it's the next story that actually brought him for the first time to the Baal Shem Tov. What happened is that he had a lot of students. He was a great rabbi, and he was a big Talmud Chacham. He knew all the Torah. And he had students of his. One of his students happened to have become a chassid of the Baal Shem Tov. This student lived in his town, in the city of Sharigrad, and he said, and his daughter was getting married. The chasana was going to be a Mezhebush. Maybe because he went to Mezhebush, he met chassidim there in Mezhebush, and he made a shidduch with someone in Mezhebush. Maybe it was his son, not his daughter, because usually the weddings would be with the girl is. So maybe his son was getting married and the wedding was a Mezhebush. So he comes to Yaakov Yosef's Rebbe, and he says to him, "Rabbi, I want you to come to my son's wedding." "Where is it going to be?" "A Mezhebush." He says, "No, I'm not going." He said, "Rebbe, you cannot do this to me. You're my rabbi. I need to come with my rabbi. I'll give you Siddur Kedushin. I'll honor you. Come with me. You have to come." "No, I'm not going." He says, "You're going to, there's the Baal Shem Tov over there. You're going to," he says, No. It's nothing to do with the Baal Shem Tov. The chassan is a Mezhebush. He says, but I'm not going to the Baal Shem Tov. He says, no, you don't have to go to the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov, there's nothing to do with the Baal Shem Tov. We're just making the chassan and measure. So he agreed. But a part of the agreement was that they're not going to the Baal Shem Tov. Fine. He leaves, he travels, and they get to an inn, which is the last stop, the last night. Before the next day, they would travel on to Mezhebush. And he sees that the people, the mechutanim, the people that are there, are busy writing kvitlach, they're writing things, and he right away gets the whiff that these people are actually going to the Baal Shem Tov. Because he can see that they're suddenly got very serious, and they're preparing themselves, they're going to the mikveh, they're like, so he gets all upset. And Yaakov Yosef was a pretty captain. He would get upset. And he gets very upset. And he says, you guys broke the deal. You told me, you schlepped me all the way over here. And he didn't like to travel because he was studying Torah day and night. And this was a bittul Torah. I'm coming to the wedding. You told me you're not going to this. It's not going to be with the Baal Shem Tov. You guys are now allowed to go. By now, they're already so close to measurables. These people, they're not even listening to him. And off they go. He's sitting alone in the inn, waiting for them to. He says, I'm not going. I'm staying here. Fine. They go. When they come into to the Baal Shem Tov asks them, please make the chasana by me, because they were supposed to make the wedding in a hall, and the Baal Shem Tov said, no, make the chasana in my shul, my next. So, all right, they come back to the inn to get dressed for the wedding, and they say, Rabbi, you're going to come to the chasana, and he says, no, I'm not coming, I'm staying over here. All right, they say there's no Siddur Kedushin, they'll have to get another Masada Kedushin. They leave and they go to the wedding, and he's stubbornly sitting there, and he's getting really, really upset. Because he's thinking, why did the Eibishter do this to me? What's this? I had to come over here, schlep myself all the way, and I'm sitting over here, and for what purpose? It's really bothering him. If he feels he's very annoyed. And then he thinks to himself, you know what? I'm so close already. Let me go check out. People talk about this Baal Shem Tov, but this Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. Let me go, see what it's all about. No one knows anybody that I'm going because they all left already. So he makes his way. He walks in, and he comes, and it's the middle of the wedding, and the Baal Shem Tov is fearing a whole tish over there by the wedding, and he's speaking. So he goes to the window, standing outside, and he catches a good spot, and he can see what's going on, and the Baal Shem Tov is talking. And the Baal Shem Tov starts telling a story. And the Baal Shem Tov tells the people, oh, by the way, you guys come from that and that town, from Sharirad? They said, yeah. Baal Shem Tov said, you should know your rabbi, he's a very, very big tzaddik. He's a very holy man. He's a very big tzaddik. I'll tell you an interesting story about him. He says, last year, it was before Pesach, and the house was very, very, very busy because people are cleaning. And every rabbi, Shabbos HaGadol, the Shabbos before Pesach, is supposed to give a big speech, a Shabbos HaGadol drasha. And your rabbi wanted to prepare the speech, but because they were wherever he went to prepare, he was always getting in the way of the mops and the brooms. And he was being bounced around, so he was getting frustrated because he needed peace of mind. So he went up to the attic, high up, to prepare his speech. As he was there, he became enormously thirsty. He became so thirsty. He needed to drink. But he was up in the attic, so he didn't have he couldn't go to the refrigerator and grab a water. He was there. And it's annoying him. He looks outside the window, and he sees a person running with two pails of water. So he calls down from the attic, Rabbi Yid, and he wants to get a drink. And this Yid looks up, and the Yid continues walking. So he gets upset. He says, Rabbi Yid, come back. Can I have a drink of water? And the Yid continues walking. So now he's really infuriated. I'm the rabbi of the whole city over here. Chutzpah, this guy. Drinking water is not going to give me a little bit of water. He gets really upset. He calls him another guy. He runs downstairs in a rage, runs after the guy, grabs him by his collar, turns him around, patches him, gives him a slap, says, I'm the Rav over here. What's with you over here? A little respect. And the Baal Shem Tov relates the story. And the Baal Shem Tov says, but you should know your rabbi was wrong. This person that he smacked was one of the 36 tzadikim. And he was actually taking water. The reason why he didn't stop was because he was taking the water. They needed the water for the baking of the matzahs. And they had to get the water there fast because or else the dough would become chametzig, and he was in a rush. And any other time. So he's hearing the story, and he says, no one knew of this incident. How does the Baal Shem Tov know a story that happened. So he thinks to himself, Ruach HaKodesh, this man really knows. So he says, maybe the water carrier told him. So from that, and then the Baal Shem Tov says, let me tell you something else. It was another thing about your rabbi, he says. It was Tisha B'Av by night. He says, and your rabbi was sitting on the floor saying Eicha. And he was crying and really feeling the destruction of the temple from a very, very strong, from a very deep place. And after everybody left, he sat down and he was learning Midrash of Eicha. And he was lamenting and crying. And then he was so wiped out, he went to bed. He was going to go to sleep. And he continued, thinking about the destruction. When suddenly he felt like really, really, really weak, very, very faint and very weak. And right at that moment, someone sees him in this fainted state, and he says to him, Rebbe, you look very pale. You need to eat something. And he says, it's Tisha B'Av, and now let eat. He says, no, but you don't look good. You need to eat something. So he says, what do you mean eat something? I can't. And the Rebbetzin is sleeping. The Rebbetzin and his wife that would give him something to eat is sleeping. And this man says, don't worry, I'll get you something to eat. And the man goes away for a second, comes running back, and brings him an apple. And he says, here, Rebbe, eat. You have to eat because you don't look good. So he takes the apple and he makes a bracha. Barachat. He made a Baruch Priya Eitz. And after he makes the Eitz, he said, what am I, crazy? I'm going to eat on Tisha B'Av? You were going to see soon. Rabbi Yaakov Yosef Pano fasted enormous amounts of fasts. He did the Tshuvas Hakana. The Tshuvas Hakana is a tshuva in a book called Sefer Hakana. It's a 6-year intense fasting thing where you fast every day besides Shabbos, and you break your fast every night. But once a month, you do an entire week without breaking your fast. It's crazy fasting. And it's a 6-year regimen. And it's a type of tshuva that the biggest, those who really, really wanted to reach very high levels of purification would do. This Rabbi Yaakov Yosef was into these sugufim. So here he's Tisha B'Av by night, and he's going to eat an apple. So he regretted it right away. And he thought to himself, must be that this young man that I met right now is not from the side of holiness. He's some kind of a klipa, some kind of coming from the Sitra Achra, coming from the other side. So he gets angry and he kicks him out. He says, get out of here. And he tells him and he throws him out of the house. And meanwhile, he's not going to eat. But he starts feeling terribly guilty. Is the Baal Shem Tov saying. He starts feeling terribly guilty that he ate, that he made a bracha. That he made a bracha levatala. He made a bracha Baruch Priya Eitz. And he didn't eat anything. And in the midst of him feeling such sorrow about the fact that he just did an avera, that he falls asleep. And in his sleep, he's in a dream, and in his dream he sees that he's in his own city, and there's the most beautiful garden he's ever seen. Crazy, gorgeous, gorgeous garden. And he's wondering because he never saw the garden. And it's like a middle, like Central Park in the middle, like a beautiful park in the middle of the city. So he says, where does this garden? Who owns this garden? So he said, there must be a guard somewhere sitting, I can ask. So he's walking around, and lo and behold, he finds the guard. And he says to the guard, whose garden is this? And the guard said, this garden belongs to the rabbi of the city. He says, the rabbi said, I'm the rabbi of the city. So he says, yeah. He says, and he says, yeah, this is the garden that was planted from the blessing that he made, Levatala. It created this garden, but it's a very, very impure garden, which was created with trees and things and all this from the bracha Levatala that the rabbi made. So he says, Gewalt, what do I do? And the guy says, well, you'll know you're forgiven when the entire garden is going to be, when the fruits are going to fall and the leaves and everything, and the trees are going to be uprooted with the roots. then you're gonna know that your sin has been forgiven. And with this, he wakes up, and he's waking up in a sweat, and he's feeling so terrible. So he jumps up, and he wants to go say Tehillim, but then he remembers that it's Tisha B'av. Before Tisha B'av, you're not supposed to say, you're not supposed to learn, you're not supposed to say Tehillim. All you're supposed to do is Eichaying and all that. Even Tehillim, you're not supposed to say. So he can't even say Tehillim. So he's miserable the entire Tisha B'av. Matzah Tisha B'av, the next night, he waits till midnight, and he takes the Tehillim out, and he starts saying Tehillim. He says the first Sefer of Tehillim. Tehillim has 5 Svarim. And the first Sefer of Tehillim, he finishes it, and he's notified from heaven that the fruits of the trees have fallen. He says the second Sefer of Tehillim, with all the kavanah and his crying, and he finishes it, and he's notified that the leaves have fallen. He says the third parak of Tehillim, and he finishes the third parak of Tehillim, and he is notified from heaven that the little branches have fallen off. He says the fourth sefer of Tehillim, and he's notified from heaven that the big branches have suddenly fallen off the trees. Then he says the fifth book of Tehillim, and when he finishes, he's notified that the trees themselves have all fallen. And then the Baal Shem Tov says, but in order for him to uproot the roots of those trees, for that he's going to have to come see me. That was the Baal Shem Tov's. For that he's going to have to come see me. And this is what he heard. So then he came, and he came to the Baal Shem Tov. He was there already, and he realized that all this was true. He had his dream. He had the experience, and looks like he wasn't satisfied with everything being removed besides the roots. And he stayed by the Baal Shem Tov. But it says that actually when he was there for the first time, the Baal Shem Tov said to him first a very interesting story about, the Baal Shem Tov would say the deepest, godliest secrets in stories. And the Baal Shem Tov told him a story that one time I was traveling, and there were 3 horses. I had a brown horse, a black horse, and a red horse, a reddish horse. And something happened with the horses. It's a story that we would hear and we'd say, what's the story? And someone said, you should do so and so. And the Baal Shem Tov said to him, Sharegrod Rav, do you hear what I'm saying? And then the Baal Shem Tov repeated the story a second time, louder. And he said, Sharegrod Rav, do you hear what I'm saying? It was 3 times that he told them the story of 3 horses. But while he was there in the first chid by the Baal Shem Tov, a lady came crying. And she comes crying to the Baal Shem Tov that her husband has left her already many years, and she's an aguna. She can't marry. He didn't give her a get. She's tied to her husband, and she's saying, Rebbe, please help me. What should I do? And the Baal Shem Tov didn't answer her. The Baal Shem Tov didn't answer her. Then the Baal Shem Tov went out to the restroom. The Baal Shem Tov comes back, and he turns to this lady, and he says, your husband, shmat himself, left the Jewish faith. He's a Cushman. By this and this parts, you're going to go over there, you're going to find him, he's going to give you the get. Okay. So now Rabbi Yaakov Yosef is wondering 2 things. Why didn't the Baal Shem Tov give her immediately the answer? Oh, wait, and then the Baal Shem Tov finished telling her this. The Baal Shem Tov went and he washed Netilas Yadayim. Because he went out, so he washed Netilas Yadayim. So he was wondering why the Baal Shem Tov said the story, didn't answer her right away. First he left, then he came back, and when he answered her, he answered her before Netilas Yadayim. So he asked the Baal Shem Tov these questions. And the Baal Shem Tov said like this. She told me she lost her husband. Her husband is not here. I looked for him. I scanned all the worlds of holiness, and I didn't find him. So I had to go to the bathroom in order to scan the worlds of the impure. So I went to the bathroom to find him, and I found him over there. That's how I knew that he shmad himself, and that's why he's stuck in those impure ones. And that's the reason why I answered her. I answered her only before, because I didn't want to speak of him after I washed my hands. So he purposely gave her the location. He sent her the GPS location only before he washed his hands, not afterwards. Any case, but the Rabbi Yaakov Yosef himself said that when he was with the Baal Shem Tov, he spent a few weeks. I think whether it was the first time or not, and the Baal Shem Tov took him along with him on various different trips and different places. He said, "What I saw from the Baal Shem Tov was absolutely crazy." He once said like this: "Halavai," he says, "I wish that from all the Torah and mitzvahs, my entire life, I should have achieved such a yichud, such a unification from all the mitzvahs and Torah that, like the Baal Shem Tov achieves when he smokes his pipe one time. Like halavai, if it would only come to that, to be able to have that. But he said, I saw Tchias HaMesim. Like we said this week, the Elisha, the Shinamis, the Elisha resurrected the dead. He says, I saw with my own eyes the Baal Shem Tov resurrect the dead. But that's not what impressed me. He says, what impressed me was one time we were traveling, and it came time to daven mincha. And the Baal Shem Tov sent me to try to find water. And I went off the wagon, and I walked this way, and I walked that way, and I walked this way, and I walked that way, and I couldn't find any water. And the Baal Shem Tov wanted to wash his hands for mincha, and he couldn't find any water. So I came back to the Baal Shem Tov. I said, I looked everywhere, there's no water. The Baal Shem Tov went off the wagon, walked off, fell on the floor, and started weeping and crying. And he cried. And I walked up closely to see what is he crying about. And he said, Eibishter. He heard the Baal Shem Tov saying, Eibishter, please protect me. I do not want to chas v'shalom be over, to desecrate a mitzvah, even the Rabbanan, even a rabbinic thing. It's a rabbinic thing that you're supposed to wash your hands before davening. Please, he says. And if chas v'shalom I don't have any water, I don't want to live. Take my life. So he was begging not to live in order that he shouldn't have to be over on a mitzvah the Rabbanan of washing hands before mincha. So when Rabbi Yaakov Yosef Polno realized that the Baal Shem Tov's Mesiras Nefesh, for even the tiniest thing, literally, because when the Baal Shem Tov was asking to die, he knew that the Baal Shem Tov is emes, that it wasn't just playing, he's not making, he's really crying that he doesn't want to live. If chas v'shalom, he's going to have to transgress even the tiniest little thing that Chazal said. When I saw that, he said, then I realized, then I was fully in. I fully surrendered myself to the Holy Baal Shem Tov. L'chaim al bracha.
think I sang this one before.
Yes, you did.
I'm trying to sing something else. Another song, a different tune.
Time, everyone. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, the previous Rebbe has one letter in his possession that was an original letter that the Baal Shem Tov wrote, not a copy. Only one letter. The letter that the previous Rebbe had is a letter that the Baal Shem Tov wrote to the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, to Yaakov Yosef of Polna, begging him that he has to stop his fasts. Because as I told you earlier, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polna used to fast enormous amount of fasting in order to bring a zichuch on his guf. And the Baal Shem Tov writes to him in that letter, powerful words. He writes to him in his letter like this. First of all, he gives him incredible titles. Amor HaGadol, Amor Yamini Patesh HaChazak, Amor Fursim B'Chasidus, the great Chacham, Amufla, Oisei Pella, the one who does wonders. Someone who is closer to me than brother, the Baal Shem Tov says. Rabbi Yosef HaKoyen. Anyways, I am adding, this is what he says, these words. I am decreeing upon you with decree of angels, and I am adding to this decree. HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Shechina are all joining. You get a letter like that. He's adding the angels plus HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Shechina. That he should chas v'shalom desist from this. That he should step up. L'bal yachnis atzmai b'sakana zeh. Not to put himself into this sakana. The Rebbe, because the Baal Shem Tov says to him, because this is an atzvustig way of serving Hashem. It's a service of Hashem that is a depressed way of serving Hashem. And Chazal tell us that the Shechina does not dwell where there is atzvus, where there is depression. That the Shechina only dwells where there is simcha shel mitzvah. Anyways, and he says to him, if you do want to nullify the negative decrees and negative judgments, and that's part of why you're fasting and so on and so forth, I have a better idea for you. Every morning, he says, when you daven or when you learn, you should cleave to the letters instead of the fasting. Just look at those letters of the Aleph Beis that you're saying and cleave with all of your might to those holy letters. Because when you will do that, then all the judgments will become sweetened. V'yakilu ma'alav adinim. This is an original letter from the Baal Shem Tov to him to tell him another path, not the path of fasting. Do not forsake your body. Lis'anu more than it's needed. And Hashem shall be with you. Very, very, very special letter. Any case, it does say like this, that after he became a chassid, he started having a lot of persecution in his city, because again, the Baal Shem Tov was very, very suspect in the early days. The Baal Shem Tov was very suspect, And the people in the city of Sharagrad started giving him a hard time. And they started making him tsaris. And a big machloikis broke out upon him, a great war. Literally, they went to war against him. And he had no choice, but he literally had to escape town. Or they kicked him out of town. And it was Shabbos, it was on a Friday that they ran him out of town. So Shabbos, he found himself in a little village. In a little town where he wasn't a shul, he was like a very alone. And the Baal Shem Tov saw Baruch HaKodesh what's going on. And the Baal Shem Tov was not far from where he was. And the Baal Shem Tov said to his students, he said, Yaakov Yosef is in a lot of heartbreak. Let's go keep him company for Shabbos. So the Baal Shem Tov and his Chavraya Kadisha came along, and they came to the town where Rabbi Yaakov Yosef was, to be with him for Shabbos. So as to soothe him a little bit. After Musaf, Reb Leib Moichiach, this Reb Leib, who was the one who got him excited to begin with about Chassidus, comes over to him and he says to him, I heard, don't worry, I see you're very pained that they gave you tsaris in your town. He says, I heard, these were the people that hung around the Baal Shem Tov, people who can listen, who can hear the announcements from heaven. He said, I heard an announcement from heaven that said, I'm good. I heard an announcement in heaven that said that this person who hates you is going to be killed. This person who hates you who's giving you is going to die on the road. And the rest of the city is going to be burnt by a fire. He says this to him. In other words, he wants to calm him down, that the people who have been making you trouble, they're gonna have their tsaris. So when the Baal Shem Tov hears Reb Leib Moichiach telling this to Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, this story, by the way, is brought in Shifchei Baal Shem Tov. When Reb Baal Shem Tov hears Reb Leib Moichiach saying this to Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, the Baal Shem Tov said to Reb Leib, Shaita, you fool, you too are hearing announcements. Du hast euch, like, this is not your department, but who asked you to listen to things you shouldn't hear? But in any case, all right, it seems like the Baal Shem Tov dismissed that. A while later, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef was settled somewhere else, and for Shabbos he was traveling to Mezhebush, and on the way he passed the city of Sharagrad, his old city. And he hated the city because he had this, but he had to stop there because they had to feed the horses. So he made up his mind that he's b'shum oifen not going to do. He's just going to feed the horses, and he's not stopping there. He's not staying there for the night. He really was angry at his town that had so mistreated him. But as soon as they came into the place into the inn over there that they got where the horses were being fed. Suddenly the sky opened up and it started raining and raining and raining and raining and raining, and they had no choice, but he had to stay there overnight. He stayed there overnight. The next morning he goes outside and the rain is pouring buckets. So he ends up being there for like 2 days and they can't travel. It's like impossible. So he rises up to the heaven. He says, Rabbeinu Shalom, the master of the world, looks like you want me to be in Sharagrad for Shabbos. Okay, I surrender. I'm going to be here. Now, he was there for Shabbos. Instead of being by Mezhebush, by the holy Baal Shem Tov, where his heart was like yearning to be, he ends up being with all of his with his enemies. All of these guys that he can't stand, he has to be there for Shabbos. The Baal Shem Tov Motzei Shabbos turns to the Baal Shem Tov says, oh, Yaakov Yosef was in Sharagrad for Shabbos. And the Baal Shem Tov laughed. And then the Baal Shem Tov says, and then after Shabbos, he was able to leave, and he comes to Mezhebush. He comes into the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov says, "No, did you enjoy Shabbos in Sharagrad?" And the Baal Shem Tov laughs again. So he's a little frustrated, He said, "The Rebbe, I was miserable, and I just wanted to come to you. I'm yearning like a one and only child yearns for his his parent, his father, I wanted to just come see you. What's this? So the Baal Shem Tov says, what do you think? When Reb Leib Mechiach told you that he heard the Kruz L'Mayla, you think that was it? You think that was nothing? It was true that he heard what they said. There was a decree upon the city of Shari, and that's why I orchestrated that you should be there for Shabbos. So you should daven for the people in the city. He says, because, and why did I get upset at this Leib? And I yelled at him? Because why did he have to articulate it? You know, sometimes you hear things, don't say it. Because when you say things, it actually makes it happen. Because if he didn't say it, he heard it, even if it's decreed above, if he hadn't have said it, then I could have removed that entire decree from that city. But now that he said it already, I had no choice. And therefore, whatever he said that he heard is going to happen. He says, but what the best I was able to do was able to delay it for many years. And the Baal Shem Tov basically delayed that punishment that came upon that city. Oh, the Baal Shem Tov said like this: the people that he said were going to die, Nebuch did die, but he said the city itself, instead of it burning in one shot, it's going to be different. It's going to be different small fires that are going to break out, and that are going to burn different parts of the city at different times. And the Baal Shem Tov was able to hold back the general thing, he said, for 20 years. One of the versions, which is really interesting, which discuss his coming to the Baal Shem Tov, was that the Baal Shem Tov, when the Baal Shem Tov passed by his town, and the Baal Shem Tov came in to see him, and he wasn't looking at the Baal Shem Tov. Why not? Because he was such a great man that he had a Magid, like the Beis Yosef, a Malach, who would come learn with him. He asked his Malach that came to learn with him, tell me about the Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. Tell me about him. Is he the real deal, or is he? And the Malach told him, don't look at him. Al tabet el mereyu, don't look at him. So when the Baal Shem Tov came in, he wasn't looking at the Baal Shem Tov because his Malach had told him not to look at the Baal Shem Tov. So the Baal Shem Tov laughed, and the Baal Shem Tov said, I know what your Malach told you, the Baal Shem Tov said, but you should know where that Malach came from. The reason you got that Malach is because a little while ago, you felt you had this sense of pride that you get to hear baskals every day. Every day you get to hear heavenly voice calling in heaven. And you suddenly felt superior to all the other Talmidei Chachamim, that you are such a spiritual person that you hear the baskals from heaven. When you had that feeling of pride, it says, it's a gaiva. You acquire a kateger achas. You acquire a prosecuting angel. It's that angel that was born from your pride. That's the angel who's coming to learn with you. And that's the angel who told you not to look at me. Understand? So the Baal Shem Tov said, get rid of your malach that comes to you, and I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you a replacement. So the Baruch of Mezhebush related that the Baruch of Mezhebush, the Einikel of the Baal Shem Tov, he said, I saw the malach that my grandfather sent, that the Holy Shem Tov sent to Rabbi Yosef. What happened? Rabbi Baruch of Mezhebush once visited Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polna together with the great saintly Rabbi Pinchas of Koretz. They both came to him, and Rabbi Yaakov Yosef had tremendous derech eretz for Rabbi Baruch, known as Rabbi Baruch, the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. Even though he was much, much younger than him, even the Baal Shem Tov was younger than the Yaakov Yosef. So for sure, the Baal Shem Tov's grandson, Rabbi Baruch. But he had tremendous derech eretz for him. So when he came in, he didn't want to sit. Rabbi Baruch didn't want to sit in front of, he wanted to stand in front of but he insisted that he should sit down. So Rabbi Baruch sat down, and as he was sitting there, Rabbi Baruch took out a snuff box, and he helped himself to a little snuff. So Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polna said to him, Baruch, He said, heard from your Zayda that you're going to be his Mamala Makim. You're going to be his continuation. He says, do you know how to snuff tabik like your Zayda? You should know that your Zayda, every time he smelled the tabik, the snuff that he snuffed, he went from world to world, from Heichal to Heichal. He said, Budachal, do you know how to snuff tabik? Then he said like this. We stayed for Shabbos. Me and Reb Pinchas of Koretz stayed by Reb Yaakov Yosef for Shabbos. And it was Matzah Shabbos. And Reb Yaakov Yosef would a lot of times lock himself in a room and he would go into meditation. Reb Pinchas of Koretz got a message. A messenger came, and they said emergency, they need him to return back to his town. And he really wanted to leave. But he didn't want to leave without asking the Toldos permission to leave, say goodbye to him, tell him that he has to go. So he caught himself, he was in a dilemma, because he felt uncomfortable going into Rabbi Yaakov Yosef when he was in this meditative state. So he turns to he says, Budachal is the guy that he likes. So he said, I'm going to send the Budachal to go inside, and maybe he's going to ask him. So Rabbi Budachal said, Rabbi Pinchas asked me to go into Rabbi Yaakov Yosef and to ask him permission for him to leave, or tell him that. And I felt very uncomfortable. Why? Because I said, I was also scared to distract him. I was scared to distract him. But on the other hand, I couldn't say no to Reb Pinchas, who was also from the great senior students of the Baal Shem Tov. So I was caught between a rock and a hard place. Here he's asking me to do him a favor, and I'm terrified. So I said to Reb Pinchas, you know what? I'll go, but you have to come with me. So I said, okay. So we come to his door, and the door was a little crooked. It was a rickety door. And as soon as I wanted to open the door very slowly, but the klamke, they would say, klamke, says those words, klamke, fell. The whole doorknob, whatever, fell on the floor, on a crashing floor. And the door opened up, and we were suddenly there. And then I saw the Magid, who was learning with Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, the holy Magid, a Malach. Rabbi Baruch writes in this letter, he says, we, these new tzadikim today, they talk about Kabbalah, this, that. They never even saw a Malach. I saw a Malach, Mohus of a Malach. And he relates this story. He says, Reb Pinchas of Koretz almost fainted from seeing he couldn't handle it. And he says, but I saw the Malach that Rabbi Yaakov Yosef was learning with. This relates the story. L'chaim. Ay, 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 kennst du nicht? Oh, ay, 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 kennst du nicht? Ach, sind Schnee. Ay, 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 I don't know why this kid is coming from. Don't sing it. Ay, 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 yeah, how am I gonna go? You can get a ride over. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 Right after, after he met him, he felt very strongly that everything he learned and everything he did before was not with the level of purity that is necessary. And therefore, after he was kicked out of the town, he became a rabbi in another town called Rashkov. And then he came to the town called Nemirov, and eventually he came to Pulno. When he was in the town of when he came to Rashkov, he was a rabbi there before he went to Sharograd. So he was already there. This is the second time he's appointed to this town as rabbi. He regretted it used to be the minhag, it used to be the custom like this. If anybody misbehaved, the rabbi would give you a fine. The fines were paid to the rabbi. Not a good deal, right? Anyways, but hopefully the rabbi would be an honest person. He was afraid that the monies that he took from anybody through a knas was maybe not kosher. So he went and he gave back. Now, after he came to the Baal Shem Tov, he went and he returned every fine that he ever took. He was looking around for all the people. He had a cheshbon of everybody that he took from way back then. And he went back and he returned. He basically returned all the money that he had. He had nothing left. He had 60,000 or whatever, everything he gave away. He became a pauper. He didn't have anything left. So much so that when he was traveling somewhere together with one of his students related the story, they came to an inn. They stayed over there. They davened with a minyan together. And suddenly by the end of davening, they saw that he slipped out. And they don't know where he went. Where did Rabbi Yaakov Yosef go? And they looked and looked. Where did he go? And they saw him coming out of a certain house. So they wondered. They asked him, what do you do over there? He didn't answer. They were curious. So they went knocking on the door. They asked the person in the house, and they realized his name was Leib Tzadif, Leib the goldsmith, the smith. I don't know, a goldsmith, he was a smith. So they asked him, what was what did the rabbi do in your house? He doesn't want to say. So they nudged him and forced him to say. He said, he came to me and he said that he owes me two gulden, because one took it from me as a fine. And now he doesn't have money to pay. He doesn't have 2 gulden left. He wants to pay me back, doesn't have. So he went and he took his talis and he gave his talis as a mashkin, that I should only give him back the talis, the security, after he will pay me back. Like this, he's getting short to find the money because he needs his talis back. So they told him, you better give back the talis right now. They took the talents and they said to him, you better tell the rabbi that you forgive him the 2 gulden that he took for the fine. And Rabbi Yaakov Yosef wasn't going to hear of it until the guy gave him a tchias kaf, which means he shook his hand and he promised him that he's moichel him the 2 gulden, and he gave him back his talis. To that degree, he looked at his life before he met the Baal Shem Tov as being lacking the purity of what it's needed to serve the Eibishter the way he should. So much so that even his rabbinic decisions that he made, he revoked them. That's how much he dismissed that he saw that whatever he was doing before had ulterior motives. It was not clean on the level that he expected of himself. It wasn't the purity that it should be. I mentioned to you earlier that his book, the Sefer Toldos, was burnt. It was banned and burnt and whatever. The people really didn't like Sefer. The masses. The reason is of those days is because he attacks very strongly the rabbinic culture of those days. He's very harsh on the rabbis. The rabbis really didn't like it. He criticizes when they learn Torah not lishma, and they learn Torah for their self-aggrandizement. In other words, he really hits hard with the message of Chassidus, but he takes it right to the leaders, and he really drills at them. And you can understand that a book like that, which criticizes the rabbinic, the whole rabbinic thing the rabbis are not gonna like it, and therefore that's what caused such a rage against the Sefer. Ramichal of Zlotchever, he had the story, Gavaldige story. Ramichal of Zlotchever had a son, Rabbi Yosef of Yampol. Ramichal of Zlotchever is one of the students of the Baal Shem Tov. Very big tzaddik. We spoke about him last year. He had a son, Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef was his youngest son. Rabbi Yosef fell ill, deathly ill. At the same time that this was happening, there was in a certain city, maybe in Brod, I don't know where it was, there was a decision that was made that they would ban, and maybe burn, I'm not sure of burning, but they would ban the Sefer. Anybody, you're not allowed to have the Sefer Toldos Yaakov Yosef. And Ramichal Zlotchever bothered very much. And he figures that he had to go ahead and leave town and do whatever he can to pull, to get various different rabbis to defend the book. To chas v'shalom not allow this book to be burnt. Meanwhile, his son was deathly ill. So, but to Ramichal, the fact that the Toldos Yaakov Yosef was going to be burnt the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov was going to be burnt, was to him a bigger emergency than his own son, chas v'shalom, almost dying. So he instructed in his household, he said that if my son dies, they should wait with the burial until I get back. Meanwhile, he's busy. He's going to do what he needs to do. Anyways, he left. And after he left, Rabbi Yosef took a turn for the worse. And he had almost, it looked like he passed away. It actually looked like he passed away. So they thought he died. This is one of those stories of people having a near-death experience, or one of those, what do they call it? But suddenly, a few hours later, he miraculously recovers and comes back. And he was sweating, and he had a story to tell. He said, my neshama left my body. He says, and I went up there, and I had 2 angels. They brought me into to a certain room, and the angel stood on the outside, and only I was allowed to go in. I went inside, and it was in front of the court over there, and one malach came with a big book of all my mitzvahs, and he was leafing through it. The other malach came with a big book of my sins. It wasn't sufficient, and I felt myself being in real limbo up there, and I didn't know what to do. And suddenly I see my dad. My dad comes storming into the courthouse over there where I'm standing. And I see he starts making a commotion. How dare you allow the book of Rabbi Yaakov Yosef to be burnt and to be banned? Like, what's going on over here? Don't you know the book was written only l'shem shamayim? It was written for God's sake. It wasn't written for anybody else. It was the purest, a sefer written with the most purest motives. How is it in heaven they agree for something like this to happen? He's pleading the case that they shouldn't, from heaven, they should not allow the book to be burnt or banned. So suddenly he turns around and he sees his son there. He says, Yosel, what are you doing here? See, he doesn't realize that his son is now also up there because he left this world already. So he says, Yosel, what are you doing here? Yosel says, I don't know. I'm here. It looks like and I need help. He says, Dad, can you help me? Can you put in a good word for me? I need your help. So he says, I'm busy now. I'm busy now. But, once I take care of things, I'm going to come back. I'm going to try to help you out. And while the Beis Din tells him, what happens is the Beis Din tells him that to the Michela, well, we're not in charge of that. You have to go to the other courthouse up there. They're taking care of the business regarding the Svarim. So Reb Michal, in a haste, leaves the room and Yosel stands there. And as he's standing there not knowing, he says, suddenly, who comes storming into the room? Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, the Toldos himself. And he starts saying, how dare you allow my sefer to be burnt? My sefer, my holy book, which has the holy writing. Again, the book that there's over 280 times when the Toldos Yaakov Yosef writes in his book, Shamati Mimoiri, I heard from my teacher. Almost the entire Keser Shem Tov, with all the Toros that we have from the Baal Shem Tov, are little pieces from the book Toldos Yaakov Yosef, where he says Shamati Memoiri. That's how we have Torah from the Baal Shem Tov today. It's all from his sefer. So he comes yelling, how is it that? And the same thing happens. He sees Yosel there, and he says, Yosel, he knew him. It's his friend. So Michal, he says, what are you doing here? He says, I need help. Please help me. He says, okay, we're busy now with something. We're going to come back. And also he runs out. So he's there not knowing what to do when suddenly there's a big thunder and a lightning and the whole place is shaking and Baal Shem Tov comes in. And as the Baal Shem Tov comes into the court and the Baal Shem Tov himself is coming to be Ma'ir Rachmim on the book of Toldos Yaakov Yosef, and the Baal Shem Tov sees Yosel over there and says, Yosel, was tust du? What are you doing over here? And Yosel says, I need help. And the Baal Shem Tov goes ahead and speaks to them, and he says, Yosel, it's not your time. Go back. So they come, and he said, by now I was so curious to see what's going to happen with the Sefer. But they grabbed me, they spun me around, and they took me back down, and here I am. This is the story he related, as he had with the, yeah. What a story. The book is here, Baruch Hashem. It survived. It survived all the misnagdim, and the book is here. One time, here this is the beautiful Gavaldige story. One time, the Baal Shem Tov was by Shalshudis, by the third meal, Shabbos meal, and the Hasidim were sitting. The Baal Shem Tov wasn't there yet, and they were sitting in the room, and a question was brought up. They're waiting. Maybe it was Parshas Miketz, I'm not sure. And they were saying, it says that the Malach came and taught Yosef 70 languages in one night. Because when Paro wanted to appoint Yosef to be the viceroy of Egypt, the law was that if you have to speak all languages. To have that important job, you have to speak all languages. Yosef didn't speak the languages. So Malach Gavriel came and taught him all the languages. So the people said, how is it possible? Every language got thousands and thousands of words. So much in a language. What do you mean? How do you learn that in one night? It just doesn't make any sense. Every 70 languages with hundreds and hundreds, even with a crash course, you can't do that. So they decided they want to ask the Baal Shem Tov this question. So they said, who's going to ask? They told Rabbi Gershon Kitover, the Baal Shem Tov's brother-in-law, they said, you're the brother-in-law, you can ask. So when the Baal Shem Tov came in for Shalosh Seudos and he sat down, Reb Gershom brings up this question to the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov doesn't answer the question, and the Baal Shem Tov starts saying Torah. He's saying Torah. Reb Yaakov Yosef of Polno, whose name is Yosef, is sitting over there. And suddenly, he starts saying Turkish, Polish, English. He starts announcing the names of every single language. And he's going on, and no one knows what to say. The Baal Shem Tov is talking, and he's like in his own world. And he was downloading language after language. As the Baal Shem Tov was saying the Torah, he was getting this shoresh, because everything has a root. Is if you get the seed, from the seed comes and the Baal Shem Tov was delivering to Yosef, because he was like the Malach brought to Yosef in the Torah. But then when the Baal Shem Tov finished saying the Torah, he forgot it all. And the Baal Shem Tov expressed himself something about it. What did the Baal Shem Tov say? The Baal Shem Tov said, as long as the Baal Shem Tov was saying the Torah, after the Baal Shem Tov said, he stopped, he forgot. He didn't remember. But he had a moment during that time, he had the experience. There are times that when the Baal Shem Tov would say Torah, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef would say, but in Arizal it says differently. In the Ari HaKadosh says opposite, or says different. So one time, the Baal Shem Tov was at night learning B'chavrusa with the Arizal. As we know, the Tzadikim would come and spend with the Baal Shem Tov. And Reb Wolf Kitzes was sleeping in the Baal Shem Tov's house. The Baal Shem Tov went and he woke up Reb Wolf Kitzes, and he said, I want you to testify that I'm learning with the Arizal over here. And if Yaakov Yosef tomorrow is going to yell that it doesn't say so in the writings of the Arizal, you will tell him what you saw over here. As Evetzogen, as Nari steht nicht azoi, you'll show him that it is true as I am saying. There was once a time when Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polno was finding that his davening was not going well. He couldn't concentrate. And there were like 2 weeks when his davening was being jammed. And he was very, very upset about it. So he traveled to the Baal Shem Tov to ask, what's going on? Why am I being blocked? And the Baal Shem Tov said, it's a certain goose that's stopping your prayers. It's a goose. He said a few weeks ago, it was before Shabbos, and a woman came to you with a shaila on a goose that she was making for Shabbos. She had a chicken or whatever, and they used to check, if the rabbi would check if it was shechted kosher, if it has a treifa. But because you were in a rush, you didn't have time to really, really look into, and you didn't paskin correctly, and you said that the goose is treif, and in this goose needed a tikkun, and because you were not masakin the goose, so this goose is jamming you. This chicken is jamming you in your prayers. You don't start up with a goose, because they can come and quack you. And this is what happened. Rabbi Yaakov Yosef was being quacked by this goose during his prayer, and he didn't realize that was until the Baal Shem Tov revealed to him. So he said to him, until the Baal Shem Tov davened for him that the Meshagas should end. Yeah. Today I said a really good story, and I'll repeat it again, just a mashal. Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polna brings a mashal that he heard. You do with this mashal whatever you want, but this is the story. He brings in his sefer a mashal that he heard from the Baal Shem Tov. That there was once a person that was a real fool. He was a shaita, he was a fool. And everybody knew he was a foolish guy. Everybody knew that this guy was a little bit off. And therefore they named him Chayzik. Like you say, Machtish Chayzik. This guy, everybody called him Chayzik. Chayzik, one of his hardest things that would go on with Chayzik is that he couldn't handle, and in the morning when he would wake up, he couldn't find any of his clothing. He would have a hard time where he put his pants, where he put his shirt, where he put his talis cotton, where he put his hat, where he put his keys, where he put his cell phone, where he put his slippers, where he was always tzuflagen. And he suffered, and he would wake up in the morning in a rage, and he would always yell at his wife, at this, where's that? He was nervous. So one time he had enough. He probably got a personal coach who was going to organize his life. And he told him to write down on a piece of paper exactly where he places his items. Now you're going to wonder where he's going to put the paper, huh? And he said, I hung my pants up over here. I hung my shirt up over here. I put my hat over here. He wrote his whole list. And in the end of the list, he wrote, and Chayzik is in bed. So if he's looking for Chayzik himself, he should find him in the bed. In the morning, he woke up and he collected all of his items. He followed the list. But then he saw Chayzik is in bed. So the Baal Shem Tov says, Chayzik went to run to the bed to look. And he saw the bed was empty. He went berserk. And he was screaming and said, Chayzik is not in the bed. Chayzik is nicht in the bed. And that's the whole story the Baal Shem Tov said. So what does that story mean to each and every one of you? You can all figure this out. Yes. There's a beautiful one more story I'll tell you. There's a beautiful story that happened with Reb Menachem Mendel of it. There's a story of the Toldos Yaakov Yosef with the Alter Rebbe. I was looking for the story and I couldn't find it today. It's a very interesting story. When he met the Alter Rebbe, it's a very geschmacka story that I once read and I couldn't find it. I didn't look too much, but I'm going to have to find that story and still add it to this. But in any case, Reb Mendel of Vitebsker was Reb Menachem Mendel of Haradok, was the Alter Rebbe's Rebbe after the Mazritcha Maggid passed away. By the way, when the Baal Shem Tov passed away, the Rebbe, the new Rebbe, was the Maggid of Mezrich. And Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polna said to Rabbi Pinchas of Koretz, the reason why Rabbi Doiv Ber became the Rebbe, he says, because when the king has to hang up his crown, the king will never hang his crown on one of his servants. When the king will hang, and why will he not put it on a servant? Because the servant might for a split second think, and that's the reason why the crown was put in Rabbi Doiv Ber, because he's nothing more than a nail. That's what he explained to the Pinchas, of course. Now it's really funny, interesting, because when this Friday, I give a Mashiach class every Friday. Not Friday, every day we give a short little teaching of a mimer. And this Friday, I was trying to explain a deep concept. And out of all things that came to my head was this teaching, that the king, when he hangs the crown, doesn't hangs it on a nail, not on a. And I could have probably found a different mashal or a different thing to bring on my point. And I don't know why this teaching fell into my head. And then on Shabbos, when I'm reading over here, I'm seeing that this is a vart for Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polna. So I always like when the Rebbes buzz me before the Shabbos. I have it many times that when I'm going to speak about a certain tzaddik, they send already certain nuggets before they come. That kind of aligns with teachings that they've said. So Remendel of Vitebsk was a young boy, and he was already by the Maggid. He came to the Mezritcha Maggid as a young boy and he learned by him. When he was about 11 years old, one Shabbos afternoon, he studied. He had learned. He was a very brilliant boy, and he studied a lot of Gemara, and he knew a lot of Daf Gemara, a lot of Blat. And he was walking around feeling very good about himself. The Maggid opened up the door, and the Maggid saw him. And the Maggid was a student of the Baal Shem Tov, but he wasn't yet the He wasn't yet the Rebbe. The Baal Shem Tov was still alive. The Maggid calls him over and he says, Mendel. He says, yeah. He says, how many blot did you learn? So he said, I learned 6 blot today. So the Maggid said that from 6 blot, from learning 6 blot, and you already have your hat like this. I wonder how many blot it takes that you won't have a hat at all. In other words, the fact that he walked around with his hat like this meant that he was feeling super cool. And the reason he was feeling super cool was because he felt very proud that he knew the 6 blot. So the Maggid said that if for 6 blot it already tilts your hat, I wonder how much it will take for you to have a hat at all. So he realized, Mendel of Vitebsk realized what happened, and he started crying and crying, and he started begging the Maggid that he needs a tikkun for having that feeling, that feeling pride from his learning. And he really cried to the Maggid to help him. The Maggid said, you'll come with me this week to the Baal Shem Tov and we'll get cleansed. So the Maggid took Mendel of Vitebsk with him to the Baal Shem Tov. The Maggid went, they arrived on a Friday. The Maggid went to give shalom to the Baal Shem Tov. Mendel, however, went to his room. And Mendel, all his life, would always get dressed in a very dignified manner. And he combed his hair. He always was good looking. And he came late. The Baal Shem Tov used to daven for the Amid. Everybody knows this. The Baal Shem Tov would daven Mincha, Erev Shabbos Kodesh. The Baal Shem Tov used to daven for the Amid Mincha. The Baal Shem Tov used to daven as the Chazan, and he used to daven and sometimes for hours. He was misakin all the entire week. The Baal Shem Tov fixed all the neshamis and everything when he davened Mincha. The Baal Shem Tov, however, was waiting for this boy to come to shul. Baal Shem Tov would not start Mincha. The Baal Shem Tov waited 2 hours. And finally, when Mendel came, the Baal Shem Tov davened. But the Baal Shem Tov didn't give him shalom. Only after Shabbos, Matzah Shabbos, the Baal Shem Tov was smoking his pipe. And that's when Mendel came into the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov started telling him a story about oxen, a whole story about an ox and another ox. And it was a very long story. And who was there in the room while he was, the Baal Shem Tov was telling Mendel the story? The Mezritcha Maggid was there. Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polna was there. Rabbi Leib Moichiach was there. Was a few great people were there. And in the story that the Baal Shem Tov was telling Mendel of Vitebsk, basically, this story had Mendel's entire life story. The Baal Shem Tov was basically giving him a rundown of every single thing that's going to happen to him until his passing. At the time, the students of the Baal Shem Tov asked Mendel afterwards, did you understand the story? So Mendel said, I understood it until this part right now, till my age right now. He realized that he's telling him a story about his life. The Mezrit, now, in the story it brings that we don't know which, between the 2 tzadikim, the Maggid and the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, one of them said, I understood the entire story. The other one said, I understood half the story. And which one was the one who said, I understood the whole, and the other one said the half, is not clear when the story was recorded. But one of them made that statement. Mendel, later in his life, fell very ill when he was in Vitebsk. And the people in the city were crying and thought that he's going to pass away. He was a Rebbe, he was a big tzaddik, they were really big followers. And he calmed everybody down and he said, from the story the Baal Shem Tov told me, I know that I still have to travel to Eretz Yisrael. And since I did not travel to Eretz Yisrael, I know my time hasn't come. And so it is, he got better. Later in his life, we know the famous Mendel Vitebsk was the Aliyah Hasidim. He went up to Eretz Yisrael. The Alter Rebbe wanted to join him. So, but on the way going, he took a detour and he came to Polna. When he came to Polna, because he came to see Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polna to say goodbye to him. When he was there, he said, okay, he stopped off to daven or whatever, and then he said, I'm going to meet the Rabbi Yaakov, the Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, the Toldos. But when he left to go, he wasn't wearing a gartel. Like everybody would go to a big tzaddik, they would put on a gartel. He wasn't wearing his gartel. Not only that, he didn't even have a hat. He was walking on the street without a hat, with just was like his open kapata, and he was smoking a very, very long pipe. And basically, it was not really the way you would go greet a tzaddik. It's a way that kind of pumps up the person, like he's a Metzias. So when the people saw that this young man, he was a younger person, is going to see the saintly tzaddik, the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, and he's going in such a disrespectful way, they were simply scared for his life because they knew that Rabbi Yaakov Yosef can be very sharp, and he can be dangerous if you upset him. So they begged him to please turn around, go back home, don't go get dressed like a man, don't go like this. And he dismissed, he just wasn't listening. When he got to Rabbi Yaakov Yosef came out to greet him, and he was very besimcha. And he said to him, do you understand already the story that the Holy Baal Shem Tov said to you? He said, yeah, and that's why I'm going to Eretz Yisrael, because in the story, I realized that the Baal Shem Tov said I have to go there, that I'm going to go to Eretz Yisrael. And do you know that in the story, the Baal Shem Tov also said that you're going to come visit me? He said, yes, that's why I made my detour. And I came to visit you. So Rabbi Yaakov Yosef then they said goodbye to each other, and he gave him brachas and so forth. Then after he left, the Rabbi Yaakov Yosef said to his people around him, he says, you think he walks around like he's such a whatever? He wore silver. He had silver buckles on his shoes, and he was dressed very, very affluently. So he says, you think you're not getting him? You're not getting him at all. He says, let me tell you. He says, the king once had a diamond, and the king wanted to hide the diamond, that no one should steal. This was a very precious gem. And he was afraid that someone would steal. He said, where am I going to put it? Where am I going to put it? Because people are always going to be looking for this diamond. If I'm going to hide it here, they're going to find it. If I'm going to hide it here, they're going to find it. Everywhere they're going to find it. And even if I give it to a guard, I'm scared the guard himself is going to steal it. So where am I going to do with it? And the king came up with a good idea. He says, I'm going to take the diamond, I'm going to hide it in the bathroom. Because in such a place, no one would think that the king would take a diamond. This wasn't a fancy bathroom. I'm going to stick it in the Beis HaKisei, and over there, no one would ever think the king would put a diamond. So he said that the Remindel. Wait, because the Baal Shem Tov had said, I forgot. The Baal Shem Tov, when he finished telling the story, the Baal Shem Tov said that this young boy, he's a real shuffle. He's a real humble person. And Mendel Vitebsker would actually sign his name. He would say, Menachem Mendel Hashuffle Be'emes. Someone who is truly humble. And the Berditchev said about, not the Berditchev, the Holy Ruzhin has said about Mendel Vitebsker that he was a man. He was a great man. He's man, but he feels himself dal. He's really poor. It's the ultimate humility. So the Toldos Yaakov Yosef said, Ramendela has such humility that no matter where he's going to hide his humility, it would be it would be exposed. It's such a powerful humility that it would be. So he has nowhere to hide it but in the bathroom, which means he has to hide it under a heap of arrogance. It's in the arrogance where he can hide his humility. This was the Toldos Yaakov Yosef's hezbollah on Ramendel of Vitebsker when he went to Eretz Yisrael. May the Holy Kayan bless us all. May we all have a mazel dige week with bracha and mazel, joy, and only simchas. Until we meet again next month, may the brachas of all these tzadikim shine upon us for simcha and for good things. I have one story from Mamdani. Okay, this is good. I'm delivering this to him. One time, Ramendel, this is for this. One time, this is important that we tell the story. Yeah, now listen to the story. One time, the Toldos Yaakov Yosef went out. It was after Pesach. to make the bracha on the trees. Because you're supposed to go in Nisan, when you see trees, fruit trees, you go out to make a bracha. So one day he went out to the bracha and he came to a park. That's where the tree was. And as he was walking, the people who were walking with him, an entourage, and there was a lot of honor. And the minister of the town, whatever, was very jealous and envious that this Jew is getting so much covet. So he was really angry. So he had in his possession a whole fleet, call a fleet. He had a whole, I don't know what you would call it. He had a huge amount of vicious dogs. But we're talking about 250 of them that he bred, of pit bulls. And he decided that he's going to teach these Jews a lesson, that when the rabbi is coming back, he told this guy, unleash the dogs on the Jews. This is what happened. They were in the park. They turned around. They started coming back. And suddenly there is a mob of vicious dogs coming right at them. And the people were terrified because the dogs were actually incited on the Yidden. So the people came running to Rabbi. And he said, don't worry. Let me go first. So Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pilno walks ahead and he's saying the pasuk, my wife teaches me that always when there's a dog she doesn't like. She says it 1,000 times. And you know and behold, the dogs never start up with my wife, only with me. Never with her. She says the pasuk. Anyways, he walks by and the dogs all come over and they start licking his feet. They're all like hanging around him, like they're all quiet and everybody's tame. And he stands there until all the Jews pass. After the Jews pass, he says, Huntalach. He says to the dogs, doggies. He says, now you can go do what you want. The dogs turn around and they go to their owner, the guy who sent them out, not the minister, but the guy that he owns his dogs, and they attacked the guy viciously. They literally ripped him to pieces and probably killed him, together with some of his other shkatzim that were there. They all these other anti-Semites who came out over there got mauled by the dogs. Then the minister who was watching this got terrified, and he came running to Rabbi Yaakov Yosef to ask for forgiveness. And he gave him a gift, and Rabbi Yaakov Yosef didn't want to take his gift. And Rabbi Yaakov Yosef told him, "Du wirst peged bald. You too are gonna die very soon." And it didn't take 2 months for him to die. So this was, I figured, I read the story today. I'm sending it to whoever needs to receive it. L'chaim u'levracha. Okay, if you hear the news, you'll let me know, and you'll know where it came from. Chaim u'levracha.